Welcome back to the Aviator Show. I'm Gillian.
And I'm Whitney.
And we drove 2,300 miles to fly our paramotors with fighter jets.
You go and look at the footage and it's all blown out white. All of it. All of it. The Aviation Nation air show that we ended up performing at was all the way out in Las Vegas, Nevada, on Nellis Air Force Base. But we're in Central Florida. How many miles was it? 2,300 miles?
Yeah, something around there.
One way to drive out there. And so when I initially signed up on the form, I'm thinking like, okay, well, I can make this happen. I've driven across the country a few times by myself. Mm-hmm. And I submitted the form, and then I talked to Gillian about it, and I'm like, hey, you should sign up, because then we can carpool.
Yeah.
And it turns out it worked out great. So what's going on right now?
Just casual drive. Initially learning about it, I was just like, oh, that's just such a cool experience. And, when else am I going to get this opportunity to just sign up and do it? So, yeah, it was all the way in Nevada, which is almost across the entire country. But I was like, well, if I have the time and can make it happen, then why not? If I get accepted to do it, then we'll figure it out. But then found out that Whitney was also signing up to do it, and so we started trying to think about it, plan it out, and she was like, well, we can hop in my van, we can kick James out of the van and drive that out together, which makes the whole trip a little bit easier than us both driving solo. Mm-hmm. So it kind of worked out perfectly. We both got onto the Para Aces team and made the plan to dip out right after the class that was going on, and we had about 5 days to get out there.
We had more days to get out there than for me to get back.
Yeah.
So I think it was like 6 or 7 days.
6 or 7.
And we ended up driving in reasonable increments. Mm-hmm. We weren't like racing to get out there. I've done a 3-day drive out to California to Salton Sea from Florida, and it sucks. And I didn't want to do that. So we ended up kind of taking our time, sort of took the scenic route. We didn't stick to I-10 because I-10, and so we took the extra hour more drive, which I highly recommend everybody always does. Yeah. So we got to see some cool parts of the country on that drive. Whenever you do drives like this, it's such a good idea to make pit stops off the freeway exit. Don't just go to the truck stop on the corner, drive into town or something. And so we did that a few times along the trip, and that was worth doing. Where are we? Louisiana. Our initial plan was, we had more than 1,000 miles to drive, and the goal of having all of our gear with us is stopping and flying along the way, stopping at, a roadside or a small airport. You can bring your gear out and go for a flight. However, apparently while we drove out to Nevada, it was like all of the weather all at once. So we had rain and wind and raining wind and windy rain.
Yeah, this was the time when there was like a huge front coming through, and there were like tornadoes in Tennessee. And so like there was just a lot of stuff moving through this central part of the country, which is exactly what we were driving through. Yeah. So unfortunately it was just very windy, and there was one point where it was like torrential downpouring on us while I'm driving the big van, and there's a tornado siren going off in Texas, and it was pitch black.
We're going to meet up with James Sutherland at the spot where we're parking overnight with him, and she's driving and I'm navigating, and I'm like, do you hear that? And I crack the window because I got the little window guards, and you can hear the tornado siren going off. Yeah. As we're driving, torrential rain. I'm like, just keep driving, we're fine. We're okay. We're like 3 miles away. Keep going.
Yep. It's pitch black. We make it to where James Sutherland is camped for the night outside of his friend's house in Texas. And right when we get there, it's still raining, so we sprint out of the van and we hop into his van so we can, have a meet up with him. And then thankfully the rain stops a few minutes later. But
yeah, it was a wild meetup at the moment. Tornado sirens going off in the last mile, And once we met up with James in Texas, Then we caravan together, which was a lot more fun than just solo driving it.
Mm-hmm.
I think James Sutherland likes to stop more often than we do.
Yeah.
Because he kept trying to force us to stop and like go and fly in places. And I'm like, well, we do kind of need to make it to Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
We're in like East Texas at this point. He's like, let's stop here, let's stop there. Like, we do need to make some miles. And also, the weather was terrible.
Yeah.
So, like, whenever we'd stop and get gas, it was blowing 20 miles an hour at 7 p.m. We're like...
He would text us and be like, oh, the weather's looking pretty good in this area. And we'd look outside and there was like a dust devil going by. And we're like, yeah, I don't know about that, James.
He was trying to instigate.
What forecast are you looking at?
He was trying to instigate so much. It was great.
But we kind of made it our goal because the weather wasn't the best. You know, what are some other fun stops we can do along the way? So we did a lot of the touristy, like we stopped in Winslow, Arizona.
Winslow, Arizona. Okay, it's the Eagles song. Stand on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. Mm-hmm. Such a fine place to be, etc. Mm-hmm. So you, when you're driving across the interstate there in Arizona, it's an exit. You just pull off and drive right into town, and you can pull up the block of the flatbed Ford on the corner. Mm-hmm. It's kind of cool. It's a good touristy spot.
Yep.
All three of us had to stop and get gas anyway.
Yep.
And it was Winslow, and we did some.
We got a sticker. We got a picture with the statue. Yeah.
We goofed around on the corner in Winslow, Arizona.
Yeah.
Quintessential New Mexico experience right now. We got balloons. And, you know, we had a couple of days before the event was going on, and the weather being not really flyable, but still enjoyable, we kind of did a little detour and we went up to the Grand Canyon because it was only a couple of hours out of the way and we had an extra day. And she'd never been to the Grand Canyon before.
Nope.
So James Sutherland and I were like, yeah, we got to bring her to the Grand Canyon. This is a worthy side quest, right?
Yep.
So after a little bit of vehicle maintenance in the Albuquerque area, we hit the road for Grand Canyon and we made it. We actually stayed overnight there just outside of the park, and we were able to see the awesome views of the canyon, do a little bit of one-wheeling on the trails at the Grand Canyon.
Of course, we had our one-wheels in the van with us, and James had his one-wheel. So we get parked at the Grand Canyon, and we did the walk up to the view to see the Grand Canyon for the first time for myself, and it was just absolutely mind-blowing. Like, my jaw dropped. And then we went back to the vans, whipped out the one-wheels, and then decided to do this outer trail along the edge of the Grand Canyon that's nice and paved, and rode our one-wheels. We got a lot of looks, we got a lot of questions, what are those things? But it's just such a cool experience to like whip out your one-wheel and just cruise around the Grand Canyon, something not a lot of people do. But one-wheels are just such a fun adventure accessory to use when the weather's not good for paramotoring, so get out your e-bike or your one-wheel or whatever it is and go on a little adventure that way. So that was really fun. Yeah, we went to another little camp spot that was down a little dirt path off in the middle of nowhere, which was just such a nice camp. So we weren't in the Planet Fitness parking lot for another night. It was like a nice nature spot.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I much prefer not staying at a Planet Fitness or a truck stop. If I can just pull off into nature a little bit, it's quieter,
Yep.
Yeah, Grand Canyon was sweet.
It was really cool.
It was well worth the side quest. And then from the Grand Canyon, from there it was only 4 or 5 hours to Vegas. So, of course, when you're driving from Arizona to Nevada, you basically have to drive over the Hoover Dam. So we had to also stop and see the Hoover Dam, which is a modern marvel of engineering. So we walked out on the big bridge, which is like way high over the water surface, and you can look right down into the dam, like the picture.
Yeah.
So cool.
The only thing I could think was, I don't know how Tucker and Ross flew there, because it seemed terrifying to fly over the Hoover Dam there's like little to no outs, and there's the power lines, and I don't know, it seems like a really cool flight, but I would be nervous the whole time.
High stress.
Yeah.
High stress flight. I think the way that they took care in that flight to make sure they weren't going to go past the bridge. I think having stood on the bridge and looking at it, incredibly scary. I don't think I would have done the flight. But you look at the probably thousands of power lines hanging every which way, all the way up the lake and stuff. It's gives me the vapors just thinking about it. Like, oh my gosh. But that was really cool to see, and make our way into Las Vegas proper, because we got to be on the special list to get into the airbase. The whole camping situation was that we got to be on site on a campground.
Before we did, though, we had another stop.
Oh, yeah.
So we did have one flight before the air show, and so we stopped after the Hoover Dam. We drove to the Valley of Fire in Nevada, and we met up with a lot of people. Brad Roper, Lucas Neas.
Rob Candela was there.
Rob Candela, yes.
And I think there were about 3 or 4 other people that we weren't really connected to very much, but they were part of the group that were going to be flying at the event. So weeks before we even left, Brad had kind of dropped the idea of, hey, if anybody's going to be there before the event, come on out, let's do a flight near the Valley of Fire, because it's an amazing place to be just on the ground. The Valley of Fire is where a bunch of car commercials get filmed, because the curves and the rocks are just amazing. So we kind of had that idea in the back of our minds as we were making our way out there, and as we were getting closer to that time, it kind of seemed like it was going to be flyable. So we connected with Brad, and he's like, yeah, we're all going to be out here at this spot, come out, and we're going to fly in the morning. And we ended up getting there that night, and waking up in the morning to being around the Valley of Fire, because we pulled in the dark.
Before this flight, I had the idea that we could fly with GoPros. You know, we're doing these once-in-a-lifetime flights. Might as well have a GoPro on our head or on a selfie stick so that we can capture some of the footage and have for the future, so we can look back on it. So I reached out to Reese, who has a stockpile of GoPros, and said, hey, can we borrow a few for the trip? He was like, absolutely. He put a little care package together for us with like 4 GoPros and an Insta360 and some selfie sticks and GoPro mounts. And so we picked it up from his house on our way out. And neither of us have ever flown with I've flown with a GoPro once, and it was like Reese handing me a GoPro to go fly with. So we're not the most well-versed in that area. We weren't pulling them out every minute of this trip to vlog ourselves and film. We're not YouTube vloggers. We were just enjoying the trip. I was using my camera. I like to take photos, so I took a lot of photos on the trip, but not necessarily a lot of videos. So we get to Valley of Fire, and we're pulling all the GoPros out so that we can film with them the next day. We're doing all the settings Reese told us.
Charged everything. We synced our settings. All right.
4K, I don't know even.
I couldn't tell you what the settings are now.
Make sure it's in video mode. Make sure it's, but whatever settings he told us. Let's put the mount on the helmet. Let's get the selfie stick set up. And we did all that, and it was great. And we had a plan for who was going to use what camera. Next morning comes around, and we're getting ready to fly. I put the GoPro on my helmet. She puts the GoPro on her helmet. I didn't really know where to put the selfie stick. I've never flown with a selfie stick. I was scared it was going to fall out of my side pocket, so I put it in the underseat pocket, thinking, oh, I can pull that out. It'll sit right on the edge, and I can just reach under and grab it. It'll be fine. I actually did that at the England comp. I had it under my seatboard, and I was able to just whip it out, and it was completely fine. This time didn't go as well.
Did it fall out?
Did not fall out.
On launch? Okay.
No, I couldn't get it out. So the entire time I'm flying, I'm like periodically reaching under to try to grab it, and I'm like kicking the
now I remember seeing that.
To try to knock it forward so that I could grab it, but it was just stuck too far back. I was hanging out of the seat to see if that would shift it up.
Didn't work.
No, but my GoPro on the helmet worked perfectly. Worked the entire time. But it's just footage of my feet and whoever was in front of me the whole time. So
it was angled too far down.
Probably, yeah.
We did the walk up to each other and turn each other's cameras on thing. So I turned her camera on, and she turned my camera on, but it must not have turned it on at all, because my head cam didn't, it recorded 9 seconds of footage.
It was like my face touching it, and then I walked away, and then it cuts out.
And you know, I don't have a mirror. I can't see what's going on. I'm not going to take my helmet off. My motor's almost running at this point. And but I had taken the Insta360 on the selfie stick. So I had that down my shirt because I wasn't going to drop that, mother.
I should have done that.
And I didn't trust my side pockets at that point. So I just stuffed it down my coat, and I took off with it. It was fine. I got it out, and thank heavens I have 45 minutes of Insta360 footage of the Valley of Fire flight, which was so cool. I mean, how about those rocks?
Yep. That was a gorgeous flight, and it was so fun because we had a huge group.
Yeah.
And we were all just ripping it up over the Valley of Fire, you know, kind of feeding off each other, learning who to kind of stay a little bit further away from, and who you were comfortable flying close to.
Learning the flying styles of the people that you're going to be flying over an Air Force base with is usually a good idea. You know, and I'd flown with Brad a few times, so I know how he flies. And it was just a blast to group up with, you know, 3 or 4 people. And James Sutherland's buzzing around on his trike all over the place like a madman. It's great.
I think Lucas had some smoke going. That was cool.
Yeah, and it's just one of those flights that I wouldn't call it once in a lifetime because you can go back there and fly it again, but it's one of those high up there on the list of really cool places to fly safely and get to see an amazing area. I got to see a bunch of bighorn sheep running around. There was like a group of 6 or 8 of them that I think they were hiding out in little canyons between the rocks that I accidentally scared off. That was really cool to be like flying along and all of a sudden, whoa, there's 6 bighorn sheep and 3 of them are rams and
Yep.
That was
and
really
we
cool.
took off directly from where we were camped for the night. So we camped up on this little plateau, and there was enough space between where everyone was kind of parked around the edge. And so there was enough space in the middle for everyone to launch and take off and then just come back and land in the same spot. So that was pretty cool. We didn't have to drive to a launch site, just go from right where we were parked.
Yeah, that's the best thing about BLM land out there is you can just park up and do whatever you want to do out there. And there's so many open spaces for that.
I definitely had my gaggle running though because I was so scared of getting lost. I was like, I don't know where we are. I don't know where we're parked. And we're going off to do this flight somewhere I've never been. So let me have my gaggle running so I can have my navigation back to where we took off from in case I lose the group.
Yeah,
But
and we have a record of the flight. It looks really awesome. We got to follow the roads, the windy roads. And, you know, you do the flight at sunrise. It's beautiful. The sun is at such a low angle that the rocks just looks like they're on fire. And that was a blast to be a part of that group to fly the Valley of Fire that morning. We missed out returning it, though. We missed out on the back side of the event. They went back and flew it again because there were several people that missed out. Both of us kind of had to hit the road.
we left Valley of Fire.
Yeah, well, there was a group of us, like 6 or 7 of us, kind of drove together, planning to all arrive at the base at the same time, make it easier for checking in purposes. We arrived at the base, and we almost all of us, all of our credentials got us in. They did a bunch of background checks on us prior to the event to make sure that we're on the down low for getting into the Air Force Base. One of our group, Lucas, for whatever reason, he wasn't on the list. So he had to hang out outside most of the day, which meant he was going to miss the inspection period for the FAA, like, ramp check, basically. So he ended up getting his gear inside, and we were able to get his gear looked at, thankfully, so he could fly the event. But yeah, we got in and we got set up at camp on base, got to lay out our wings and have real FAA people look at and touch our wings and ask us questions about the wings, like real, I want to know what this is kind of knowledge questions.
It was funny because I pulled out my wing. I think mine was the first to get checked. But it was a little bit windy, so there were a line of people holding my wing down, and they were all like, man, this wing is so nice. Like, it's not dusty, like, it feels good. And I was like, well, I get to fly from grass every day in Florida, and they're so used to the rocks and the dust, because mostly everyone there was from out west. Not a lot of people drove 2,300 miles to get to this event.
Right.
So was like, yeah, I've been flying my wing for a year, but like it's from grass pretty much every single flight. And they're like, oh, you're so lucky. Like mine is just like dusty and dirty.
It looks too new, you know? Yeah, the dust out there does linger on your wing. But having our wings inspected there was pretty cool, and we all passed with flying colors. They checked over our motors and made sure that there weren't any glaring problems, right? And then the same thing with our wings. They got really hands-on with them, which was surprising.
They did, yeah.
And I think it was more curiosity than anything. And then we got to kind of make our plan with Damien. Did a group meeting with us, and we discussed kind of what we were doing. He split us off into 2 groups. So one group was assigned to flying the flight line area, and the other group was assigned to flying in front of the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And depending on which day, you would be performing at a different position. So with potentially being able to fly Saturday and Sunday, you would potentially get the chance to fly both the flight line and the speedway line. Well, unfortunately, our weather was pretty poopy on Saturday, too windy for us to be flying. So our show got canceled on Saturday, which meant we didn't get to fly the speedway, but we did get to fly the flight line, which was kind of the point of the whole event, was to get that magazine shot of over the jet as you're flying around. So we got lucky. We got to be in that group that got to fly the flight line. I'm so thankful for that.
So despite the weather not being the best Friday and Saturday, we still got to go to the air show both of those days and get a little taste on Friday of what the air show was. And then Saturday was the full-blown event, so we got to see in the morning and afternoon the air show events going on, see the fighter jets fly, see the Thunderbirds. Because we had access, we got right up on the flight line and we could see the Thunderbirds, you know, taxiing out right in front of us. They were waving to us. It was really pretty cool.
We were right there with the press and the media. So like they were taking their pictures and filming, and we were right next to them like, hi, waving to the pilots. It was amazing. We were considered airshow performers. So we got kind of an all-access pass to be able to be right up on the flight line where the general public wasn't quite allowed to go.
I feel like I had imposter syndrome because we fly these little butt fans, and then there's like F-18 pilots hanging out eating lunch in our same proximity. And
there was definitely a lot of imposter syndrome happening there, but you kind of have to inhale and say, yep, I'm here, I'm special, and I deserve to be here. And it was really cool to be integrated into the air show. The Para Aces also kind of partner with STEM organizations to try and get kids interested in flying and aviation in general. And so they had a booth. All of us performers kind of spent a little bit of time to help encourage and entertain the public as to what the paramotor thing is all about. So we had a big paramotor simulator that they had on a winch, and you could get kids and people into the seat, and then you'd hit the winch and it would rise up, and then it was like you were flying as you're sitting there in the chair and watching the air show go on right in front of you. That was pretty neat to be able to do that. So we helped with a little bit of the education aspect during the air show, during the normal show time, not when we're actually performing. Didn't take a lot of effort on our part to be able to show the community what makes this whole sport very cool.
Unfortunately, not everyone gets to be an F-18 pilot, and not everyone gets to fly in fighter jets. But pretty much anyone can fly a paramotor if you have the drive and the physical ability. So it's like, okay, here's this little corner of this huge air show where we're showing people something that they can actually come do. And I think that drew a lot of people's attention, like, oh, I'm really interested in aviation, and here's something that's really attainable for me. So it was definitely good to have people there. We had Jeremy from USPPA there with his booth, and there for further education to tell about all the schools across the country that these people could go to. So that was really cool.
Kids always love that stuff. So Sunday being the only good weather day for us, being the last day of the show, we had an early call time. We were pretty much the first people on the show grounds in the morning. So we got to drive in with our vans and park right next to F-18A Hornet. The F-18 there made a perfect backdrop. Lots of us took pictures in front of the jets. And eventually they were like, hey, just wait a minute and we'll probably get the blessing from the pilot so that you can get a little closer if you want. And of course the pilot, he was super cool. He was super jazzed about what was going on. He was out there with a smile on his face, like, yeah, come on, let's get pictures. Come on over here. You can pose like this. And so we all got our turn taking this amazing photos in front of this amazing piece of machinery.
they're amping us up. They're like, I can't wait to see you perform. Yeah. After we did perform, I heard them being like, that was the coolest thing we've ever seen. And I'm like, you work on an Air Force base and that was the coolest thing you've ever seen? Like, okay.
Yeah, the one of the air bosses, or the field boss, who's there kind of overseeing, and we all got done. She's like, man, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Yeah. I've never gotten to see this up close like that. And just to be able to blow these professional pilots' minds, it's kind of mind-blowing ourselves.
So once we had, gotten all our gear out of the trailer, done all our pictures and everything, we were kind of just waiting around to get set up to take off. We were a little bit delayed in when we got to take off because we were waiting on some jets to come in and to land. So we took off, I think, around 10 a.m. And we were supposed to maybe get up by 9 or 9:30. 10 a.m. in the Las Vegas sun isn't going to be the best weather, but eventually we started getting set up and it wasn't really the best setup. We were all kind of staggered, nervous about the fact that we were all going to be blowing each other's wings back, so they gave us permission to kind of spread out a little bit wider along the flight line. So some people walked pretty far down the flight line, and where we ended up being in that lineup was directly in front of the F-18. This is so cool. Like, I felt so lucky that was where I somehow got to be set up to go fly. But it made the whole process a lot easier because then we were just like, you take off, you take off, you take off, rather than it kind of being staggered and you having to get your gear all set up. The process was a lot easier. And then, so we had the first group launching, and then they would get up and go to the speedway. And then the second group was going to be up and just doing the flight line traffic pattern. So they all got up. I think there was only like 1, maybe 2 blown launches, and they just, reset up their wing. Other pilots took off until they were ready, and then they got up. So the whole process was very easy. Damien was on radio with all of us, telling us when to go. And then we had our group leads who were also on radio telling us, okay, we're gonna maybe do this pattern or try to link up for a stack. But I took off. I was a little bit nervous because there was a tractor like right in front of me, and the wind was a little bit switchy. It wasn't the strongest, so I was like, my wing could come up and I could be directly pointed at that tractor, but it was fine. I took off, wasn't worried about the tractor once the wing was up, and that was good. And it definitely was a little bit turbulent. I think at first more so because we just had 20 people take off and it was just chopping up the air. Once that other group had gone off to the speedway, it wasn't terrible. It was a little bit thermic, but again, I've flown in worse, and it was such a cool flight being over the Thunderbird. I flew right directly next to the Thunderbirds, saw all the fighter jets parked in their little parking spots, and we tried to have some stack formations going. It was a little bit hard to get everyone linked up. Everyone was wanting to do their own thing, get their own pictures, own videos. And then we had Brad Roper with the huge American flag that he dropped out from under him, and Lucas flying with smoke. So they were doing a little bit of acro throughout the flight.
Yeah, and we all had comms, so we were all tuned in on the radio, listening in if anybody had special commands. And throughout the flight, I recall hearing a lot of, y'all need to be higher, because we all, for some reason, paramotor pilots like to be close to the ground. I don't know why. But we all kept creeping a little lower and lower, because, you get better shots when you're a little closer to the jets. So we had to be a little higher, and then eventually the acro that was happening got shut down because the air boss didn't like it for some reason, even though they had approved it. Just air show stuff. It all happens on the fly, quite literally. And what you go into the show starting out with your plan can rapidly change just with a condition change. But yeah, you're right. It really wasn't as turbulent as I expected it to be for that late in the morning in the desert.
And we flew for like 35, 40 minutes. So I was expecting to just get worse and worse and worse. But by the time it was over, I was like, man, that went by so fast. And it was really just, we're just flying in a circle. That's really all we did. It wasn't the most exciting flight in terms of what we did, but in terms of what we were around and where we were, that made it really special. But yeah, there were acro specific pilots that were supposed to be doing acro while we were flying around, and that got shut down very quickly. I kept hearing over the radio, stop doing acro, stop doing acro. And then the speedway group was making their way back, and I think some of their radios weren't working, so they didn't hear the don't do acro thing, and so they were doing acro on their way back. And, you know, it was fine. We didn't actually get in trouble, but I think it just spooked some of the air bosses a little bit because they'd never actually seen a paramotor do acro, and they were like, that looks crazy. What is that? What are you guys doing? Didn't want any incidents or collisions to happen, which is totally understandable. Right. But
yeah, thankfully it was the whole event went off without a hitch. Everybody got up into the sky, even with a couple of relaunches, and everybody enjoyed themselves. Everybody had good landings. There was only one kind of a rough landing out of one of the fellows, but he was fine. I couldn't have been happier with how everybody did. Well, I had my 360 camera again. I got it out. I flew with the 360 cam out the whole time. Got back down, landed. I'm like, oh, hey, I got 30 minutes of footage. Sweet. You go and look at the footage, and it's all blown out white. All of it. All of it.
So sad.
And it's so frustrating. I couldn't believe it. I had to take a breath and walk away for a minute from that camera when I realized what it had downloaded, and I'm like, no, 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 no. That is my unfortunate story of how the amazing footage of me flying at Nellis Air Force Base during Aviation Nation is white as a fish belly.
Undocumented.
Undocumented. You know what? It's all captured up here.
It is.
And several others, as part of the group, have video footage. It's an unfortunate learning experience with this technology because Jill and I are basically Luddites when it comes to GoPros. And I'm sorry to my fans who were hoping to see some amazing jet fighter flying
it's
footage.
Like you can't compare yourself to Rob Candela, who like gets the little camera
it's magnetized
to the inside of his wing, so it's staring straight down at him, and then he's got a picture right over the fighter jets, and it's like, that's the coolest photo that's ever going to be taken there.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason they put it on the cover of the USPPA Paramotor magazine.
Yeah.
So if you don't already get one of those cool magazines, hey, you can subscribe. You can sign up and be a part of the USPPA. The organization is a really good thing for our sport, and so you can join that. It's a yearly membership, and you get access to the learning syllabus and the learning tools that the USPPA is putting out, and you get a really cool magazine, very quarterly, a lot of really awesome pictures, articles, information, stuff that you don't know. I love getting a cool magazine I can thumb through and learn a little bit. So that was story time with Gillian and Whitney. You know, if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe our Aviator channel. Comment on the video. Tell us what you like to hear in our future videos, and we'll see what we can do.
Maybe we'll get better at capturing footage and become better vloggers for more interesting story times. But this was a really fun experience, and we hope you enjoyed hearing about it.
Hopefully eventually we'll get better at this whole recording thing, and you'll see more girl content.
Testing 1, 2, 3, here I go. Give me that microphone. Give me that microphone. Is this thing on? The moment I've been waiting for is finally knocking at my door. My day up in the sun is just a ride. The world is mine and it's my stage. I'm owning this, I came to play. Just shout out, scream it out and testify. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. I'ma give 'em a sight to see. Buckle on up and get ready. Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. All is on me, make it loud. Listen up, can you hear me now? Give me that mic. Now's the time. Get up, get loud, and show 'em what I'm about. Give me that mic. I'm coming alive. Ain't no stopping when I'm in the zone. Give me that microphone. Give me that mic. Give me that mic. Now's the time. Give me that microphone.